Following their decision to keep Oli Marmol for another season, one of the greatest players in the history of the Cardinals organization appears to be the front runner for a managerial job, but with another team.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving you all the info about the birds on the bat. On today's episode, we're going to talk about day 2 of the wild card week, and one of our NL Central brethren already sent packing. So that didn't take very long. But the bulk of today is going to be about a situation that may or may not upset some fans in Cardinal land, and that's the news that legendary Cardinal Albert Pujols is now the front runner for the managerial opening for the Los Angeles Angels. Now, according to reports from The Athletic and a bunch of them across the internet, they say that sources tell them that Pujols could be owner Artie Moreno's leading choice to take over for Ron Washington, who is now 74 years old, missed a big chunk of time this season after having quadruple bypass heart surgery. Thankfully, it looks like he's going to be okay, but age, health, and, the biggest factor, the fact that the Angels just didn't win underneath him, has led to that dismissal. And I love the quote that he gave The Athletic about things with the Angels. He said, when you're a competitor and you're in charge, sometimes you've got to make chicken salad out of chicken-ish. Although he didn't say ish, he said the word that you think I meant to say. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. It's colorful. And it's true. You can only work with the players and the tools that they give you. Oli is learning that firsthand here in St. Louis. First year, he's got a number of really, really good players. He's got Goldie and Arenado at the top of their powers. You've got Pujols and Molina and Wainwright, and you've got all of these guys that were able to lead that team into a postseason appearance. Now he's got a below-average group of players, and they're like, hey, try to make these dudes better, go win some games. Good luck. So not a great spot to be in if you're a manager. But the Cardinals are going to bring back Oli anyway, who still has 1 year left on his deal instead of moving on and looking in another direction. And the two names that are constantly brought up when talking about replacing Oli were the names of Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. Now, to me, it seemed that Yadi was closer to becoming an MLB manager first than Albert, but it looks like I'll be wrong, which is nothing new. But I'll be wrong on that front if Albert decides to take this job in LA. There is one thing about this that I believe needs to be dispelled, okay? Before is that even a good picture of him? Let's show, here's a good one of Albert. That's pretty classic. If you're watching on YouTube. If you're just listening, bear with me. But there's one aspect of this that needs to be dispelled, and that's that Albert wasn't allowed to become the Cardinals manager if he was ever even offered the job because of his contractual obligations with the Angels. Now, if you remember, part of that $240 million deal that got him to sign with the Angels and leave St. Louis back in 2012 also had this 10-year, $10 million personal services contract that would kick in after he retired, which is what happened following that magical 2022 season where he led the Cardinals to the playoffs. He just went nuclear in the second half, chasing the 700 home run plateau, which he reached. And he's been working with them this whole time. It's not like Albert hasn't been doing things. We just don't hear about it that much here in St. Louis. He's been with the Angels in uniform during spring training with them. He's been working with Angels prospects at his academy in the Dominican. So it would seem that the Angels kind of had him locked up, if you will, and that he was either going to be with them or he was going to be with nobody else, right? It made sense. Fans were constantly pointing this out to me on some of the posts that I made when I was talking about, are you guys nervous you're going to miss out on Albert or Yadi? And it made sense to me. that maybe that is part of the obligations, that he wasn't allowed to go with anybody else. But we also know that contracts can and will be broken under certain circumstances. Nothing is set in stone. There are buyouts and stuff that happen all the time to allow people to switch organizations in a number of different sports. So it's not, it's not just baseball. It's all over the place. And then I saw that Derek Gould from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com responded to a similar tweet that I was getting about Albert not being available because of the personal services contract. And Gould responded with this: manager offer would trump personal services, and Angels would save $7 million. Pujols wouldn't choose that role over a chance to manage, right? So the idea that even if the Cardinals wanted Albert, that, what if there was like, we want Albert. He should be our next guy. So the idea that even if that was the case, that they couldn't have him appears to be false. That appears to be false. So we can squash that narrative. Apparently that's not true. If Albert wanted to be the manager of the Cardinals or any other team in Major League Baseball, he would have a chance to do that and would be able to work something out with the Angels so that he would be able to pursue other possibilities. So if the Cardinals wanted Albert, all they'd really have to do is just offer him the job. But that's not what they're going to do, at least not for 2026. They have made it very clear that Oli Marmol is back for the final year of his contract. And if you've watched any interviews with Chaim Bloom, he likes Oli a lot and is clearly not putting any sort of blame on what has transpired as far as the lack of winning in the Cardinals organization. He's not putting that all on Oli. If that was the case, he would replace him right away, but he's not going to, at least not for 2026. The next name that everyone is keeping an eye on now, if this Pujols thing does go through and he becomes the manager of the Angels, the other guy that you worry about now is Yadier Molina. I'm going to discuss his situation and why there is reason to maybe not be so nervous about him joining another club just yet as a manager. We'll talk about it next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app in any way that you feel necessary. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play and use the app. You can build those parlays, which are fun. You can go into the player prop section, which is where I would say the majority of the stuff I do on FanDuel is in the player props. I just find that to be very entertaining, and it makes watching these games more fun. You can even follow the live lines during games like tonight's Thursday night football game with the San Francisco 49ers, or what's left of the San Francisco 49ers, taking on the Rams. And I know we still got some people who are very bitter about them. That's fine. But we also have some fans that followed them from St. Louis to LA again and are rooting for them. And they got quite an offense going for them right now with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams. So should be a fun game to watch, especially if you're a Rams fan. So whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel will make watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also available on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. And I posed this question on Monday that, by rolling with Oli for the final year of his deal, again, it's what I expected them to do. But by doing that, is it worth it if you're missing out on a chance to bring Albert back or bring Yadi back? Albert appears to be very close to taking that job with the Angels. Yadi is a different story than Albert in many ways. First off, we're more familiar with Yadi as a manager than we are with Albert. We saw Yadi returning to the dugout with the Cardinals on 2 occasions this past season, which was great. Of Albert and Yadi, I've always felt that Yadi was the one who would be the first one to get a managerial job just because, he's been managing in a number of different places already before Albert was. So he was on that path a little bit earlier than Albert got on that path. I also felt long ago that he would be the future manager of the Cardinals if that's a path he wanted to pursue, even during his playing days. And there was a number of different reasons why. You've got that commanding presence behind the dish. You got the way he interacted with teammates, the ability to control the game and understand not only what his team needed to do, but what the other team was needing to do and the other team's thought process. And, as a catcher, you have to cover all of these things. And we saw how quickly things went sideways in 2023 when he wasn't behind the plate and in that dugout. He was basically a player coach already. We didn't realize how big of a deal he really was. We thought we knew. We didn't realize how big it was until everything fell to pieces in 2023. They bring in Wilson Contreras. They're like, oh, my gosh, he's not Yadi. What are we doing? He doesn't know how to do everything that Yadi did. Uh-oh, do we got to put him in left field? We don't know what to do. We're freaking out. So you saw that happen. And another thing that I believe gives Yadi the edge over Albert is just loyalty. Yadi has always been a Cardinal. He's revered in this town. You see how the fans react to him when he comes out to bring the lineup card to home plate. Like they stand up and cheer for the guy. How many times does that happen? Only when Yadi does it. And unlike Albert, he never left for more money elsewhere. Now, don't get me wrong. I was never mad at Albert for taking the contract that he did and leaving for the bright lights of LA. I understood it because I understood the money side of things at that point where the Cardinals offered this and then the Angels trumped that. And he was like, well, I'm not going to leave $50 million on the table or whatever it was. So we took it. I get it. It actually kind of worked out for the Cardinals because Albert's career went on a decline when he got to LA and the Cardinals went on to win another championship. But, and I don't think it's tarnished anything in his career. I'm not saying that, but there's something to be said about a guy who didn't leave, who played with the one team his whole career. We feel the same way about Adam Wainwright. He was in the Atlanta organization when they acquired him, but once he was a big leaguer, it's only been the Cardinals. We like that. That's a special bond that you have with those kind of players. But if there's no opening in St. Louis, I don't believe Yadi's just going to sit around and wait until one happens. And there are a number of managerial openings right now in Major League Baseball. The Angels, obviously, Twins, Giants, Rangers, although Skip Schumacher looks to be the guy who's going to take that one. The Nationals, the Rockies, the Braves just opened up one. A lot of talent there. The Baltimore Orioles. Some of these teams had interim managers that took over for managers who got fired in the middle of the year. So decisions need to be made on some of those people still, but you get the idea. There's spots to be had. So should we be nervous that Yadi is going to jump to one of those spots if he's offered a job? Part of me, yeah, I'd be a little bit nervous, but there was another line from Derek Gould that might help put that anxiety at ease just a little bit. In a recent article, he wrote that Molina is committed to return as Team Puerto Rico's manager for the upcoming World Baseball Classic. And he said the timing for him to pursue a major league job is likely a year from now. Once his son completes his senior baseball season and graduates high school, and also after the MLB draft. Molina said he's open to being a coach on the path to managing. All right. So if Molina is cool to wait until next season, funny how that lines up with Oli's contract expiring, which then opens up a door for him to become the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, we also know that Oli and Yadi have a very good relationship. You wouldn't have seen Yadi in the dugout if they didn't. They stay in touch. They talk. Oli, from everything we know, wanted Yadi in the dugout. Is like, yes, more of you. Let's do this. Come over. Let's be a part of this. The more Yadi, the better, right? So that kind of, puts everybody in a bit of a weird spot, where one guy is out, the other guy is in, and the other guy's been helping the guy kind of come in. It's kind of a weird spot, but at the same time, business is business. There's also the possibility, and this is something to think about as well, that if Albert lands this job in LA, that perhaps he would like to bring Yadi on as a coach with him in LA. I haven't heard a whole lot on that matter just yet. That's just been something that's been kicked around a little bit, but it's certainly something to think about. But the other side of it is if Yadi isn't ready to commit to and if in Derek's quote, isn't ready to commit to an MLB job, not just managing, but an MLB job in general for another year, then perhaps this isn't something to be all that concerned about. Like, why would he commit to a year with the Angels if he's not ready to commit to a full job in Major League Baseball? So maybe that's not something that we really need to be concerned about. It's just, something when I get my mind going, I start thinking of different ways that this could unfold. So what are your thoughts on this? I got a lot of responses on the decision to bring Oli back. They kept flooding in, which is awesome. Got a lot more angrier responses on day 2. I don't know if it was because the last episode, there was a lot of positive thoughts that were brought up and the angry mobs came back and were like, no, down with Oli. But we got a lot of those, but I appreciate it. I'm not upset about that. It was just funny that more negative stuff was coming in on day 2. But I want to know where you guys stand on what's happening with Albert and Yadi. Are the Cardinals missing the boat here? How upset will you be if one or both of them end up managing elsewhere and it's Oli Marmol in the dugout for the Cardinals still? Do you even trust Albert and Yadi to be the next manager of this team, especially knowing where they are in this? And I'm going to use different words instead of the words you're used to, but what about in this restoration or this renovation of this organization to make the Cardinals great again? Are those the guys that you even want in charge? Let me know in the comments section, or you can hit me up on X if you want to. I want to talk some playoffs next. We had our first elimination, and it's someone we are quite familiar with. And I kind of want to compare what the Cardinals are now to what that team is that just got knocked out of the playoffs. We'll get into that next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss out on the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's always good to be right, isn't it? Especially with Prize Picks. It's a fun, simple way to add more excitement to whatever football game you're watching. You just pick more or less on player projections. Like, you can go with Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and boom, you're in the game. Very simple. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. Prize Picks has also just added stacks. So if you want to ride with a player, say someone like Josh Allen, who's my quarterback on my fantasy team, so he's kind of my go-to guy to talk about when it comes to this stuff. I can select his passing yards, his rush yards, and his touchdowns all in one lineup. I can just ride with Josh if I want to. That's what Stacks is all about. They also added the new injury reboot feature where, we've all been burned by an early game injury where somebody goes down right away and you're like, oh, I'm screwed. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. That's something Prize Picks does as well. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code LOCKEDONMLB, one word, for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Time. Nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd. You're watching these playoffs right now. Imagine being in the stands for some of these games. The chance to see your favorite team, your favorite players in person. But getting tickets, that can be kind of a hassle, right? You got the queues, the login screen, surprise fees. Nothing angers me more than the surprise fees, and that's why I use Game Time. As soon as I got it and figured out that this was the best way to do it, I've never moved on to anything else. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, backed by their game time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included. The price you see is the price you pay. No little secret, hidden, dirty fees that pop up at the very end. The app made it super simple. You can get the view from the seat that you chose. Fees are included. Zone deals pop up. It's faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. Download the Game Time app. See for yourself. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. It's every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis, but on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. John and I were hosting again last night. It's been a lot of fun to, it sucks that it's not the Cardinals. And I do make it a point when I'm hosting to point out all the former Cardinals that are on the show, that are in the playoffs right now. Day 2 of the wild card series saw 3 series force a game 3, and one team was already sent home packing. And to no one's surprise, that team was the NL Central Cincinnati Reds, who were the very last team to get in. The Dodgers beat up on them on Tuesday night, 10-5, then spanked them again on Wednesday, 8-4, to send the Reds back home unceremoniously. You know, that Dodgers team is freaking awesome, right? They're really, really good. They've got one wart on their roster, and it's the bullpen, where they haven't figured out who they can trust yet. And every time they're even throwing starters in the bullpen to come in and help them out. And those guys haven't got it done. Emmett Sheehan was in the game last night, and he had to be pulled mid at bat. It was a 1-2 count, and they pulled him out. Like, it was very weird, but it worked. They got the strikeout. But, they got 2 excellent starts from Blake Snell and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Anybody playing the Dodgers is going to be a tough matchup. This next round with them and the Phillies is going to be awesome. But very tough, especially for a team like the Reds, who were not a great offensive team this season. They just snuck in after the Mets fell apart. And it makes you compare what the Cardinals are to what the Reds were, who, although they went 0-2, they still went to the playoffs. They still got to play meaningful baseball in October, which is what you're trying to get to. That's the first step to get to the next step and the next step and so forth. I think the Reds, one glaring spot that the Reds are way better at than the Cardinals is starting pitching. They've got Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, Brady Singer. And these guys are younger dudes too, for the most part. And that's where the Cardinals are really trying to play catch up when it comes to competing for a playoff spot. Like where were you take the Reds rotation, where would guys who are currently on the Cardinals rotation, where would they fit in? Where would they rank? Would Sonny be third? Like, would he be fourth? Would you rather have Hunter Green, Chase Burns, and Andrew Abbott? Would he be fifth? Would you rather have Nick Lodolo over him? And I'm not talking about like payroll price. I know that Sonny's making an ungodly $35 million next year. I'm just saying the player he is. Does Michael McGreevy crack the top 5? Does Matthew Liberatore? Just goes to show you the difference in talent that the Reds are putting out there in their rotation than where the Cardinals are. Something that they're certainly going to be working on. Sal Stewart, the rookie, top prospect for the Reds. Nice piece for them down the stretch. The Cardinals were hoping that they would get something like that from Nolan Gorman or Jordan Walker. Needed them to be their Sal Stewarts, someone who could do damage with one swing. Neither of them stepped up and did that this past year. Will they ever? We don't know. Maybe Ivan Herrera can be that guy. When he was healthy, he was crushing it, had an excellent September. Like what I see from him. JJ Weatherholt, he's going to be one hell of a player as the Cardinals' top prospect, but he's not a masher. Like, he's not 30 home run potential like Sal Stewart is. Cardinals need Walker or Gorman or someone else to go be that guy, along with the other talent you have surrounding them, to go with Herrera and Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson and Brendan Donovan and Wilson Contreras moving forward. They really missed that dangerous bat. Thought it was going to be Gorman. Thought it was going to be Walker. Didn't happen. Need those two to step up and be one of those guys or find another guy to do it. In the other games, the Cubs got blanked by the Padres and their super bullpen. Former Cardinal manager Mike Shildt made the bold move of pulling Dylan Cease early in that game because throughout the year, Dylan Cease just hasn't been very good after the fourth inning. He's been horrible, to be honest with you. And Shilt's got that incredible bullpen at his disposal and made it work for him. So great job by Shildt. Series will wrap up at Wrigley tonight. Andrew Kittredge, they had get the start for the Cubs in that one, which was interesting. Guardians forced a game 3 with a big 8th inning and had that excellent challenge early on to negate the Tigers' go-ahead run. So excellent managing right there. And then you had the Yankees hang on to beat Chaim Bloom's former team, the Red Sox. When Chaim was there, he caught hell for that Trevor Story deal. And now that Trevor Story is finally healthy, he had a hell of a season for the Boston Red Sox and is proving to be the biggest piece of their offense right now in the playoffs. He was in on all 3 Boston runs. He almost went deep again off of Cruz, but that ball died in center field right in front of the warning track, saved Cruz's bacon there. The Yankees ended up surviving and winning game 2. But also thought it was interesting that both those teams, Boston and New York, have payrolls of $300 million in New York. You have $200 million in Boston, and they have to rely on 2 pitchers tonight with a combined 18 starts in the big leagues to decide who's in and who's out, who's going home. It'll be the rookies Connolly early for Boston, Cam Schlittler for New York. I just thought that was very interesting. You know, if you squint really, really hard, you can almost see Quinn Matthews and Liam Doyle doing that for the Cardinals in the near future. But you got to squint really hard. Really good podcast interview done by Chip Carey and Brad Thompson with Chaim Bloom after his hire. The Cardinals posted that on their YouTube channel. And it really showed more of Chaim's personality and his vision for the Cardinals. He was very blunt. He was very open with what they're planning to do, which we didn't get in the press conference. You know, there's only so much time. They sat down with Chaim for, it's like 50 minutes long. It's a little bit long, but it's very, very well done. I've posted that. It's on YouTube. I've posted that if you haven't seen it already. And we're going to be talking about that interview in tomorrow's episode because it was really well done. The word transparent, something that we haven't gotten a lot from John Mozeliak over the last few years or ever, is something that Chaim kind of shows. He's very transparent on his thoughts and what he thinks it's going to take to get the Cardinals back to where we all want them to be. So that's kind of your homework assignment for tonight. You go watch that, and we'll discuss it on Friday. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. You can like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Would appreciate that. It really helps our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.